Migrant families and unaccompanied children, as you know, are still arriving daily in large numbers at the U.S.-Mexico border. The small town of Roma, Texas, is a really busy area for migrants crossing the Rio Grande. And evidence of the migration can be seen all along the riverbank. LA Times reporter Molly Hennessy Fisk and photographer Carolyn Cole recently came across some of the possessions migrants carried and dropped as they crossed the border.
I'm out here on the banks of the Rio Grande. The riverbanks are down below. There's trails leading down to them. This is the spot where Border Patrol has been processing migrant families and unaccompanied youths who cross the river down on rafts below us. And the edge of the river is lined with a bunch of these bracelets that smugglers give to migrants that signify that they've paid for their passage. And if somebody tries to cross without one, they risk getting kidnapped and their families getting extorted to pay the fee, which is usually around $6,000. You can also see there's other things strewn around the edge of the river: children's clothing, baby bottles, shoes, things that the migrants and their children shed along the way. So you can really see here a lot of the bracelets leading up the trail as we head up from the riverbanks into the brush that leads to the parking lot where Border Patrol waits. So this is often what you see when you're walking along the trails here, just a pile of stuff discarded. There's a backpack with Disney princesses on it that had a blanket and some clothes in it. So people leave all sorts of things. I'm not sure how much, but it's Honduran money. You can see Banco Central de Honduras.
Molly and Carolyn have been reporting extensively on the migrant situation on the South Texas border, and they joined us with a closer look at what they've been seeing there. Great to see you, Molly and Carolyn. Great reporting. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Lisa.
Molly, I'm going to start with you. You've covered this border for a long time. Tell us how it is different from other years.
So what we're seeing now is a seasonal increase in migration that usually happens as the weather warms up a little bit as we approach summer. But it's also very unusual circumstances because we're coming out of the pandemic. We've had a year where the border has largely been closed as a policy because of the pandemic, first under the Trump administration and now under the Biden administration. It's a measure called Title 42, which allows them to almost automatically return migrants back to Mexico. So we've had that policy happen, and then you see this increase in migration going on. And there are some migrants now who are being released on the U.S. side. Families, children, and youths who arrive without adults have to be kept here and turned over by Border Patrol to shelters. So that's what the administration and Border Patrol are dealing with now, with this increase in what are known as unaccompanied minors and families coming with small children.
Carolyn, the Border Patrol is not allowing you to do any ride-alongs right now. It didn't take you very long to find where the migrants were crossing. Tell us where you went, how difficult it was to find the place, the people, the things.
Well, covering migrants crossing the Rio Grande is always difficult because it's either south of the border wall or on private land or in areas that are close to the public. And like you said, normally the Border Patrol would take us along, but they haven't been doing that since the pandemic. I was able to get permission from one landowner who said we could be on his property at night. But then it took another 6 days before I was able to get the pictures that I wanted, because they start crossing just at dark. And when the rafts start coming, they have about 10 people in each raft, and it just goes on into the night.
And the Biden administration is loath to call this a crisis, but Carolyn, what did you see? Did you see a crisis?
Well, I mean, I saw on one rural road an area where 700 people had crossed in one night. And at that time, there were about 200 people still waiting to be transported. And it took over 12 hours for them to actually transport those people and to get them into a detention facility. So it's a heavy load, and a lot of people are coming right now.
Molly, we saw in that package the things that these people are dropping, leaving behind, sometimes ID cards that they're going to need somewhere. You found some things that you brought back.
I did, and these are some of the things that I wrote about in the story. So there are these bracelet. Well, they're plastic wristbands. Really, they look sort of like a bracelet because they're cinched. Some are pretty small, and they say entregas or entrega, which means delivery or deliveries, and they're issued by the smugglers, is what law enforcement told us, to the migrants to show that they paid the fee that's required to cross the river. There were also these property tags that sometimes flow away that Border Patrol issues to migrants. And this one was issued to a 9-year-old Honduran girl. And then these are some of the property bags that migrants then put their things in when they're taken into custody by Border Patrol. And we also found some pretty personal things like this little notebook that has scriptures that were written in Spanish by a Honduran woman. Bessie is her name, is written inside. With some other religious sort of phrases that I guess she took along with her. So there were a lot of really personal items that we found there. And some of them I used to contact the people and their relatives, the migrants, to find out a little bit more about them.
Yeah, Carolyn, you took a lot of pictures of those things. What story did they tell?
Oh, just people of all ages, from infants, pregnant women, up until people that are in their 70s and 80s. So it is a very diverse group of people, and they're going all over the country. They're hoping to meet family members even here in Los Angeles, Florida, all over the country. I met some going to Kansas, North Carolina. And it is sad because we know that some of them are getting returned, and they're getting returned to a country that has a lot of problems itself. So it's a crisis in every sense of the word.
Molly, you mentioned the smugglers. I got to ask, the Biden administration keeps saying the border's closed, the border's closed. But there are smugglers who are taking out, reportedly, ad time on local radio stations in villages in Central America. They're using social media, Facebook, saying to people, hey, great time to come, let's go. How much are people paying, and where are they getting that money?
So we talked to immigrants who told us that they had heard that if you come with a child, especially a young child, like under age 7, that you'd be allowed to cross and given a permission to stay legally in the U.S. The families we talked to said they paid different amounts depending on the country. Some paid $6,000 to come, some paid $12,000. But they did say that it was cheaper if they came with a child under age 7. Some of them told me that they sold everything they had. If there was a mortgage on their house, they sold the house and everything in it. One guy I talked to from El Salvador who was coming to Los Angeles told me that. And others said they took out loans from family members, or family members helped pay for them, especially like children who came alone. They said they weren't really sure how much their family paid, but that their family in the U.S. had paid.
Molly Hennessy Fisk and Carolyn Cole, thank you for your amazing reporting. And gosh, Carolyn, those incredible images. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.